listening to the Rugby Coaches Corner podcast with your host, Andy Plymer. Bringing you up-to-date coaching concepts from the world of rugby. Sharing ideas to make the game better.
Welcome to episode 106 of the Rugby Coaches Corner podcast. I'm your host, Andy Plymer, and joining me today is Andrew Brownhill. Originally from the UK, Andrew recently relocated to Australia, where he now heads up the academy at Northern Suburbs RFC in Sydney, along with other coaching roles at the club. He's had roles with Worcester Warriors, the Scottish Rugby Union, and Gloucester Rugby, and it's a pleasure to have him on the show. So welcome, Andrew.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on and us finally being able to get a date in the diary.
Yeah, mate, no worries. It's busy times for you relocating, and always busy for me. Always stuff going on, so I get the schedule move around and everything like that. So how are things going in Australia, settling in?
Yeah, amazing. It's been busy. It's probably been the most busy I've probably ever been in my life in terms of relocating, because I had to sell my house, and getting over here during a global pandemic was a nightmare, getting through all the red tape and stuff of border force and all that. But it was, it's been well worth it since getting here. First 2 months, the weather has been absolutely amazing, and it's what I dreamt of. But now we've had 4 weeks of solid rain. And it's, it's still raining now. And it's rained every single day for 4 weeks. So I get posed the question every single day by people, oh, this must remind you of being home.
Good times. Did you get a chance to go to Bondi and get the English tan at Bondi?
Yeah, well, that's a funny story, because I actually I didn't quite grasp the concept of putting sun cream on before I went out. So I was like, I'll just put a sun cream on when I got out, and got severely burned. It's like the worst burn I've ever had in my life. But yeah, that was the first beach I went to, was Bondi. As soon as I was out of like 3-4 day isolation, went straight down there, and then quickly realised I think I'm probably going to have to start working out before I get even closer taking the shirt off down here. Got 50-year-old blokes who are in the best nick I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, clubbies. Yeah, it's that should be something on the visa when you come in, is just a warning on, please put sunscreen on before you leave the house.
Yeah, even when it's cloudy, it's been cloudy and like 25 degrees, and I've got back home and I'm burnt, and I'm like,
yeah, you got a shine on. I can see. Like,
yeah,
this is audio only, but it's popping a bit there.
Yeah.
Cool. No, the most important question is, are you TUI's new, or are you VB? Where are you at?
Oh, well, I'd probably say I'm more of a VB. I think, if I was gonna.
Good. Yeah.
That seems to be the go-to that everyone drinks here.
Well. Yeah.
But yeah, probably more of a VB.
All right, sweet, cool. All right, well, what about your playing backstory? How's that look? When did you start, and what were those experiences like?
I mean, I'd probably say it's probably fairly bang average, really. I mean, I didn't get into playing rugby till I was late, so maybe 15 years old.
Right.
Probably about 15 years old. I probably first started playing, and that was. I just went to a local state school, and we just happened to have a PE teacher there, Mr. Kelly, and he was like Gloucestershire man through and through, but proper rugby nut. And he ran the rugby at the school, and I was playing football at the time, and he was like, I don't think you're built to play up front and be a striker in football. He was like, do you want to come and play rugby? And I was a bit like, I don't really know if I want to. And he was like, just come along to a session. I was like, what have I got to do? And he was like, just catch the ball and run really hard at people. So I literally just took his advice quite literally.
Good coaching.
And then just jumped into it there, and just kind of got the bug, really, and went down to my local rugby club and played there. And then, sort of seemed to do all right, and played sort of all the county sort of representative rugby, like Worcestershire County, North Mids, then Midlands under 18s, under 20s. And then was involved with some of the sort of Scotland age grade stuff through their exiles. And sort of was involved in that till I was about sort of 18, 19 again. And that was just on my mum's side. So I went to England schoolboys at sort of under 16s and didn't get picked up. And one of the guys there was like just having a chat to my parents on the sideline, and they kind of said, oh, do you want to come along to these sessions? These like, we're looking for kids that have got family backgrounds that are Scottish, like the classic, like grandparents, parents, or have they got a Scotty dog type mentality? And then, they just went for that and sort of loved it. And and then I sort of got to, I enjoyed rugby to start with, playing it. And then I think just the more serious it got, I think I started to lose interest in wanting to play. And then like picked up a few injuries here and there and whatnot. But I didn't ever really have a bug to go back into playing again. So I stopped playing when I was about 21. So
right,
I moved to London and played for like a couple of London Prem sides there, and sort of then just decided I just can't be sort of training 3 times a week and then trying to work a full-time job and getting smashed about at the weekend. I was just a bit like, it was almost taking me. I found out later on in life that I suffered from arthritis really badly.
right.
So, like, I was playing a game of rugby and training, and it got to a point where I actually had to have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off from rugby, and then train on a Thursday for a team run and play on a Saturday, because like my body and joints were in so much pain, and I just thought it was just playing rugby. But then I had tests and investigations, and they're like, no, you've actually got rheumatoid arthritis, which is why you're in so much pain. After they were like, so you should probably stop playing rugby.
Oh wow.
But fairly sort of like bang average rugby background, really. But and then sort of got the guy who sort of coached me with Scotland, Rob Riley, he's still there now. He's legend of a bloke, responsible for sort of any sort of Scottish qualifier player that's in that team at the moment. He's sort of single-handedly sort of got them into that environment. And when I got into coaching, when I was about 22, he kind of said to me, did you want to get back involved in doing the Scotland stuff, just really randomly? So that's how the journey started, sort of coaching-wise for me.
Wow, that's awesome. And it's enviable too to start at such a young age. Like, I stopped playing when I was 40, so I loved it. Would still play now if I could train and if I could recover in time, which definitely felt like I had rheumatoid arthritis in my last season. That's for sure. But I'm definitely enviable of like guys like you who started at such an early age. Because there's such a ceiling, like you in terms of learning, and I think you're a bit more risk averse too, at that young age, to try new things and take on new roles and throw caution to the wind kind of thing. So what are your thoughts on that in terms of your starting age in coaching and how that's helped you moving forward?
I think the best thing about it was, I think half the time I didn't know what I was doing, number one. So that helped. I think there's that naivety of going into it where I just copy and pasted sessions from what I had when I was being coached. Because I sort of thought that's what good looked like and that's what coaching looked like. And I just sort of like not bumbled along, but I sort of I was open to ideas because I didn't have a 10 or 15 year playing career where I had this set idea of what it should look like. So if someone came to me of ideas, or there was CPDs going on, or someone gave me advice, I was very like open to it, and I'd happily try it because I'd think, oh, this might be good, this might not be. So definitely not so risk averse, and probably there was that naivety of being really fresh green into coaching and not really knowing what I was doing, and being like the classic, like Tuesday sessions look like this, Thursday sessions are team run throughs, and then a game's going to pan out like that. But I got really lucky, and I did a few jobs like before I started coaching full time. So I worked on a farm and worked as like a pipe fitter and stuff and things. And then when I was 24, I got offered a full-time job to work in a local private school coaching rugby. So that was sort of the first inlet into coaching day to day, which was pretty incredible. It was learn every day, which was good.
What about mistakes? What were some of the big ones?
I was lucky when I got into the school. The school had also just appointed Sean Perry, who was sort of ex-England 9, and he was working with England under 18s and England 20s with the likes of Rusty and Fletch and Waltz. So he was working at the school, and I made loads of mistakes. Like the best one was we had a game, first team game, and I remember just shouting onto the pitch like telling the boys what to do and where they need to be and pulling them from side to side. And Pezza just walked over and he was basically like, mate, keep your mouth shut. Don't say it. He was like, don't say anything else until half time. Then you can talk. But it was like, we don't shout information onto the pitch. He was like, if you're going to say anything, make it sure it's positive and you're encouraging the boys. And then I was a bit
good
like,
feedback.
I mean, it honest and brutal is what it was. But at the time I was a bit like, what's he going on about? Like, why? Surely I'm coaching. I'm telling them what to do. I'm shouting onto the tighted prop. He needs to get 3 inches lower when he's 50 yards away from me and he probably can't hear. But it was great because afterwards we had a really long conversation for about 2-3 hours. And we hadn't known each other very long. And yeah, he just basically just went through sort of he changed a lot with me because, I mean, he gave me a lot of belief and confidence and he let me try things like that. And he'd always give me honest feedback around anything. So if I did something that was shit, he'd just tell me and say, that's not very good. Or if I did something good, he'd tell me that's really good. And he just probably allowed me, because he came in with this, he had a mentality that it's not about winning or results or winning on Saturdays. So we had a great environment where he just let me try stuff all the time. Like sometimes he say to me, I'm not going to coach on a Saturday. So you can pick the team and you can make the subs and you can do all the stuff. I'm just going to watch. So
that's awesome.
Which is great because I put players on in different positions and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, but he'd always just reflect back on me afterwards and sort of say to me, sort of, why did you do that? Lots of questioning around what he just wanted to know why I did everything. Why are you doing this way? Like, what's the reason behind it? So that helped me develop a lot into understand sort of why I coach the way I want to coach and how I want to try and help people or work with athletes. But he was great. Like he played to the top end, played 17, 18 times for England. And played in France and England. So for me, I've never played to that level. Like I've never been a professional athlete for as long as that. And he basically would just tell me if I had questions around why the teams attack, why do they defend like that? What should the scrum look like? He'd just be an open book. He put me in contact with other people, opened lots of doors for me. But he just was like, that's probably going back to the first question about being a young coach, is I was just a sponge to everything.
Yeah.
So I just constantly write everything down all the time that he was telling me, just constantly. I've got like 20 notebooks full of old notes from stuff that we'd have conversations about that are going back sort of seven or 8 years now. And I'd just be writing it all down, just wanting to learn all the time, which is probably a plus of being in that environment.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it also speaks to the power of having a good mentor. Like I think that can accelerate your coaching if you have someone who, not all mentors are created the same. Like he sounds like he was pretty blunt, didn't mess around, and that's on you as well in terms of your personality, be able to take that blunt feedback well and keep going and keep pushing. So I think the mentorship piece is one that I feel is really missing in a lot of coach development.
Yeah, and I think it's the way it's like sold as well, because I think when someone talks about having a mentor, it straight away it gets quite serious, and I think our relationship started like we probably didn't see eye to eye straight away, which was really good. Like we were very, very different people in some respects, but we had just honest conversations and we just spoke to each other every single day on the phone, just about random stuff, like not even about rugby half the time. It was just about life stuff and life experiences and shared experiences that we'd have. And that helped then be able for me or him to give me feedback on stuff, because I knew that he was saying something from like, he genuinely cared about me wanting to get better and helping me out. So I knew if he told me something, whether I didn't want to hear it or not, or I did want to hear it, I knew it was coming from like a genuine place of care. He wasn't just saying it for the sake of it. For him, he could just pack up and go home every day. He didn't have to have any conversations with me, but like we really worked sort of hard in that area. And I mean, it's valuable for me because I still speak to him every day, not every day now because of the time difference, but I'll still speak to him one or two times a week on the phone if we get the time difference right when he's heading into coach at Wasps, either in the morning or in the evening. We'll chat all the time, and he's been great. Like even giving me advice when I was umming and ahhing about coming over here. He was like, mate, you may as well go and coach in a different country, like have a crack at it, see what happens. And at the end of the day, he was always big on just like everyone says it, but it's that lifelong learner tag. And he was like, you go over there, like you've got no expectations. Like you could go over there for 12 months, you could go for 5 years, but you're probably going to learn stuff and fail loads and learn a lot along the way. So you may as well just jump in both feet with it.
Yeah, it's great advice. Cool. And what did it look like before you came over to Australia? You in the intro, I mentioned your academy roles with Gloucester and Worcester Warriors. What were those roles about, and what was your kind of day to day in those positions?
They were similar, so they were similar roles. I just had been involved with Worcester sort of when I was a lot younger and played, and then it just was a sort of a natural step to help out with the academy there. So that was with their players from sort of 12 to 16 to 17, and then I did a similar role, like a development player role at Gloucester as well. And I just moved over to Gloucester just because I wanted to change and to sort of challenge myself a little bit more and go in a different environment and see how other people do it. And that was, we'd get every year under 13 level, we'd have sort of 125, 130 boys that would join the program. And then from 13, 14s and 15s, like no one gets dropped. They'd all stay in, and we'd coach them sort of three or four times a week. We'd coach them.
Wow.
And then we'd have internal games or external games would be sort of once or twice a year, but the internal ones would happen about 4 or 5 times. And then when the boys get to 16, that's when some of them might decide they don't want to carry on anymore because they might take up another sport, or that's where some of them we might say to them, look, we've got to reduce the numbers for the under 16, 17 and 18 age group. So like, here's your work-ons and your plan. We'll stay in contact with you. We'll help you out. But yeah, we reduce the size there, reduce the sort of playing group size when they got to that age group. But yeah, very similar roles. I enjoyed it. It was those development years of working with sort of young kids is sort of what I'm probably most passionate about, really, is just helping people develop in that area.
What were those conversations like?
I mean, I was quite lucky in that respect, where we had we'd have other people, sort of managers or leads of the program, who would take a forward step on that. So I didn't really have to do that. I had to do it with Scotland, with the under 16s with them, but with Gloucester and Worcester, I didn't really have to. I probably got the better end of it, where it was afterwards where the kids would come to you and be like, I need to work on this, this and this. Can you help me in this area? So for me, you'd probably get a bit of a pissed off kid because he's been dropped. But at the same time, he's got an action plan, and he knows that if he goes away on it, he's probably got a really good chance of coming back in again.
Yeah. Oh, that's good as a coach for sure. And what about the Scotland role? That's probably where you spent a lot of your time coaching. What was the description of that? That
was sort of talent IDing boys from sort of 16 to 20 who were qualified to play. Sort of building relationships with them in the respective sort of English academies they were in, and then we'd get them together with Scotland boys into their age groups of sort of 16, 17s and 18s. They'd play internally, and then we'd sort of play games against Welsh schoolboy teams, have festivals, like we had Colwyn Bay Festival that would happen every year, but I don't think because of COVID that's probably not going to happen anymore. And then it was just, we'd have them regionally, so we'd get them in sort of once every 5 or 6 weeks to a training session, whether like North, South or Midlands. Keep tabs on them, look at them, and then sort of push them into the Scotland setup basically. And if they're good enough, they could get satellited into the 18s or the 20s. But again, it was just, I mean, working with players, giving them IDPs of where they can go. And, we knew that probably not all the boys we'd get in would go and play Scotland's representative, but it was good that quite a lot of them did. And even now, I mean, one of the lads, sort of Archie MacArthur, I mean, we saw him play for Oxford County, and he wasn't even, I think he'd been dropped by his local academy. And then we brought him into the Scotland setup, and then he ended up captaining the under 16 Scotland side at Colwyn Bay. And he's, it is English as they come type of thing, but obviously qualifies for a parent. But then he basically then got signed by Wasps signed a deal with them, and he sort of now played England 18s and England 20s, and he made his debut for Wasps last night, I think, or the night before in the Premiership Cup. So like his journey now is sort of gone in a different direction, but sort of when we picked him up and sort of got hold of him, he was sort of just playing county level rugby. And then, yeah, we did quite a lot of work with him for that year and the year after. And then it's just, for me, I don't really mind where the boys end up as long as they're loving rugby.
Yeah.
They're still playing. And for him, it's worked out great because he's playing for Wasps and sort of he's been in that England under 20s environment, which is fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. And what were some of the things that popped out about him when you saw him and watched him play and thought, here's a guy who's been dropped from an academy, but I think they've probably made a wrong decision.
He's a natural leader. Just seems like, saying that, I hate using words like that, but he just seemed whole thing of like,
I'm the same.
The whole just people gravitating towards him and hanging on to his every word just seemed to just happen for him at such a young age, for 16 as well. So that's why he captained the side. Yeah. But rugby wise, like naturally he's so strong, like really, really good ball runner, but was clever and understood rugby. Like he understood rugby a lot. And he was just lead by example type of leader, sort of. His actions spoke for themselves, and he played exceptionally well during that festival. And I think we played 3 games that week, and he was a standout in every single one of them. Awesome. So for him, it was just giving him the confidence and the arm probably round him that he needed. Like with so many kids now, I think
it's so important. Eh?
I mean, that's just sort of reached into sort of my philosophy. As 3 things I wrote down before coming on here was like help, belief, and confidence. I think are 3 words in 3 areas that like young kids want more than anything nowadays. I think to myself, thank God I'm not a kid. I'd hate to be a kid coming up now with all social media and the pressures they're under. And I just 100%. Think they just want someone that's got a bit of confidence and a bit of belief in them to really help them in that regard.
Well, let's jump into that now, because that was my next question about if someone was to ask you your coaching philosophy, how would you mentioned it there, but how would you go into that in a bit more detail?
I mean, simple terms, I'd say it's help get the best out of people. I mean, help people realize their full potential. I think everyone's got potential inside of them. I just think your sort of social background of where you might have come from can sometimes stunt that a little bit, your family environment, your school environment. And that's why I think kids coming, whatever level it is, if it's grassroots or even kids are lucky enough to go into elite environments, I think they just need an arm around them, some confidence, and someone to give them a bit of belief and show them a bit of care to actually, for them to realize that bloody hell, like I'm actually quite good at this, and to help express themselves. And then probably I really, really like the old Greek philosophical quote, a society grows great when old men plant trees in whose shade they shall never sit in. Yeah, so for me, like that probably really resonated a lot with me with what I do working with a lot of younger kids when I did kids 13 to 18. Like for me is I want them to be really good rugby players. Like I'd love them all to play professional rugby because of the world it opens up to them. But like, as long as they're just good people by the end of it, in 10 years time, if they're a good work colleague or a good husband or a good father, like, and they've taken some of the stuff they learned from me when I coached them, like that's probably winning more than if someone actually went and played pro rugby. I'd much rather they turned out to be a really decent person from the time they've had with me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, well, there's a couple of things in there for me. Like one, especially from a teaching background, you never know fully what's going on in a kid's life when they walk into your classroom or onto the field. So I think that's really important for coaches to reflect on. And I definitely know, in my early playing years, that was definitely something that popped up for me, was how, and you raised it well there, how were you parented? What was your family life like? What was your situation like? And that definitely influenced how I responded to feedback and criticism and rejection from being dropped, and how I worked in a team as well. So I think that's something definitely coaches need to reflect on for sure. And yeah, it's just there's no black and white athlete that you're going to get. Like, this is how I expect you to be, and this is how we're going to do it. Especially now with the information that they have and how they are able to express themselves and their ideas that they have formed in their own personal philosophies. If you don't match up to that, or if you kind of go against that or push them in a direction, you're going to lose them for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Like I always say to coaches, or I had someone say to me once, just imagine what the car journey's been like for the kid getting here, and then imagine what that car journey is being like on the way here, on the way back home. Because as you say, each kid's different. I think in rugby, we've probably got a large percentage of boys in England anyway who are from quite affluent backgrounds, who play in top private schools. And then I probably resonated with the 20% who aren't in that bracket. Because for me, when I went in to play county rugby and North Mids rugby and Midlands rugby, there was only 3 or 4 of us in a squad of 35 who weren't at a private school. So like we just went to normal state schools. So I've always resonated well with those sort of boys who are probably from the lower social economic background. Because that's what my sort of background was like when I was younger. We had a sort of, for a few years and stuff, we had, like, things were tough for us when we were younger. Like, I sort of my mum worked sort of 3 or 4 jobs, and my dad was ill for a while, so he couldn't work. So he had leukemia. So for my mum, she was working 3 or 4 jobs, 70, 80 hours a week, and then being a mum to 3 children, and doing all this kind of stuff. So, you know, sort of counting coppers and pennies and stuff to do food shopping was like regular. So for me to then go into rugby environments and make friends in rugby who are from completely different backgrounds to me, and I'd go to their houses and be like, I'll be like, Jesus Christ, I didn't even realize the doors were this big. Like, literally used to like a little tiny 3-bedroom house. But yeah, probably more that's probably helped me a lot understand kids, that everyone's background's different. And some kids like me, I just needed someone to have a bit of confidence in me and a bit of belief in me and a bit of help in me. And that's probably, I probably see myself in some kids that I see turn up to sessions who I can almost already feel what that home life's like for them, which has helped. And I just try and say that to coaches, just like imagine what it's like for them. Like each kid's different. So each kid's going to have their own set of values and shared experiences that they're going to need help on.
Yeah. And I'd even argue that even the kids from that affluent background, they're dealing with their own things as well. There's probably
massively,
some parental abandonment there to pursue these high end careers and those kind of things. So you're gonna have that kind of all in the mix as well. So an approach that's more athlete centered and kind of a bit softer in certain areas is important, I think.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, I know everything's quite big on sort of the athlete center approach, but I mean, I think you've got to get to understand all your athletes on a one-to-one basis. You've got to, like, it's that whole thing of that. As soon as you do that, it's a bit like what I said about me and Sean. Like, as soon as we got to know each other and he got to know me, giving feedback and working with each other is so much easier. And then I think it's like, for me, the most important thing around that with working with kids, even younger kids, I think just being honest with them. Like, if the kids need feedback about something because they need a certain part of their game needs to improve, like, just be honest. But you can be honest and you can, it's not gonna, I think sometimes we can fall foul thinking we might hurt a kid's feelings, but I think there's a way in which you do it. Which comes back to that piece around your language and how you communicate. Because you can say to someone, you need to work on your pass because your pass isn't good enough. But you can say, but here's the plan and here's the process, and I'll help you get there. So at the moment, it's not where it is. And there's 4 or 5 factors behind that some of them aren't your fault, but here's the plan and here's the process, and I'll help you and we'll help you along the way. So you've given them honest feedback, you've told them how it is, but at the same time, you haven't just sort of left them out there to dry, which is probably what might have happened a few years ago. I think.
No, I agree. Cool. And what about your own professional development? How do you stay up to date?
I'll probably say sort of I'm in sort of loads of WhatsApp groups with other coaches from different sports from all around the world, and that helps because they sort of shine a light on different areas. But I mean, for me, when I was over in England, it's been a lot harder here because I haven't got so many contacts in Australia. But say over back home, I just go and email in and sort of write in or get phone numbers of people in football environments or sort of rugby or rugby league environments, and just go in and spend a day or half a day in their environment. And I was lucky. Birmingham City Football Club let me into their environment for a day, and I got to spend a whole day with them, and they gave me sort of all the time in the world to look at their environment of how they deal with kids all the way from 10 years old all the way up to the pro boys that sort of, some of them have played prem football. And that's helped a lot, just going into environments, sort of seeing other people, meeting other people, just trying to get out of the rugby bubble has helped. But then having a good mentor, like I said before, like having like Sean and other people to bounce ideas off and speak to helps massively, because I'll sort of say to them, this is happening, this is going on, what do you think? Could I change this? Or I film my sessions so I can watch myself back, but I'll send my footage to other coaches that I know and say, what do you think of this? And I'm lucky that they know me, we've got a good relationship, and they'll tell me if it's good, if it needs improving, or could I do something differently. So I'd probably say just connecting with as many people as possible, and you'd be quite surprised at, if you reach out to people actually who might actually pick up the other end of the phone. I mean, when we had the lockdown, we had like a 12-month lockdown back home in the UK. So I was bored and like furloughed, which was obviously, it was like semi-retirement because you were just being paid to stay at home, which was amazing for the first 6 weeks. It was like retirement, but it got really boring really quickly. And I just thought, I'm just going to try and speak to as many coaches as possible. And so I reached out to, say, like Bernard Jackman. That man has given me so much time over the past 12 months. It's been ridiculous.
Awesome.
And he always helps me out with stuff. So I reached out to him, and we ended up having some real good chats on the phone. And then spoke to, again, like Sean Edwards as well was another amazing one. So got his phone number, and probably spent about 2 hours trying to figure out how I'm going to put this text together, because it's like the scariest man in the world. But I just literally just sent this text, and I didn't even know if the number was going to work or not, because the guy who gave it to me was like, he coached me when I was at Wasps, so this is the number I had for him. I don't know if it's the same, but that's going back sort of 15 years. But the man's got the same number, believe it or not. And
probably a flip phone too.
That's what I reckon. But he messaged me back, and he was like, mate, I'm obviously living in France. He was like, I'm free tomorrow. Do you want to have a chat on the phone? And I had an hour-long conversation on the phone, and he was great. Like, gave me loads of advice. I was like, look, I'm quite passionate about defence. I said, you're the best in the world at it. Like, what advice have you got? And he shared so much stuff with me, and was so open.
What was one big thing out of that convo?
Communication was the biggest thing. He was like, just be clear and to the point. And he said, just make sure, like, put a bit of onus on the players. So, he was like, the players do all the analysis. He said, I might have one clip, but he said that onus is on the players. But he was like, it's all about communication. He said, if you can communicate and just be precise and to the point, and wrap up your point in sort of 25, 30 seconds when you're delivering something, he was like, that's one of the biggest takeaways I took from it. And he sort of ended the conversation, because I said to him, look, I really appreciate your time. And he was like, look, man, when I was coming into coaching, I had older heads that would give me loads of time to help me with my coaching. And I always said, if someone reached out to me to have a conversation, I said I'd always help them out. But he was awesome. Like, I don't think many people sort of want to, or like have a bit of pluck up the courage to drop him a text message. But yeah, he was cool. And that sort of stuff's helped. Like, genuinely, like, just, you'd be surprised at, especially the real high profile people, because you see them on TV or you've read stories about them, but they're just like really, really open to learning. I've got a few friends that have reached out to Eddie Jones. Sort of, he's done the same with them and given them time, and he's has the persona that is sort of a hardy character, but they all said that he was good as gold and gave them loads of advice.
Clearly, like, definitely with the podcast, like, that's what I experience is they love rugby, and they want to talk about it, and especially if they know it's about coaching. It's not about anything outside of that, none of the peripheral stuff. And I've had the same. It's, talk to Eddie, talk to Checker, and I don't think I've ever been as scared pre-interview for either of those ones. That one had to work through some deep breathing exercises to get up for that one. But yeah, that was great. And then the other one that springs to mind when you're talking about that is Wayne Smith. That guy was amazing when I spoke to him, and I sent him the questions through, and he said, "Oh, I don't think we're going to have enough time for this." And I'm like, "That's cool. Like, I'll go with what you can give me." And then by the end of it, I'm like, "Oh, actually, I've kind of got some things I got to get done here before I pick the kids up." So, he ended up just wanting to talk and chat rugby. They're just passionate about it and they love it.
That's the one. Like, I just wrote the word down when you said you're scared. Like, I don't think we talk about that as coaches, because especially when you get older, people I remember going into coaching and I was shitting myself before so many sessions. I was generally scared to deliver a session because I was always concerned about how I sounded and how I got my communication across, because I didn't sound like sort of everyone that coached me playing rugby was 6'5" ex-players, or Northerners from back home, so they all sounded scary. But I was a bit more softer with my approach and how I sound, and I used to be scared beforehand. And Pezza used to literally just watch me. He just watched me deliver a session and put pressure on me all the time, and he could see that I was getting agitated, and not agitated but nervous. But as a work on for me. But I just don't think we talk about being scared enough. Before I spoke to Sean Edwards, I was absolutely bricking it on the phone.
Yeah.
Literally, I was like, "Oh my God, what's he going to say? What's he going to say?" But yeah.
I've been teaching for 25 years, and at the start of every semester, I'm always nervous. And even in the middle of the semester, there'll be some lessons where I'm like, "Oh, hang on, I haven't. This is new." And I get a little bit nervous, and I double check my notes, and I make sure I'm on top of things. But I think that's good. I think it gets you. It gets you into that mindset of, okay, I have to really deliver well here, because if you're just cruising, it's you're not doing anything. You're just doing the same stuff over and over again, and you're not getting better. You could do that for 20 years and not get better. And your athletes or your students, whatever the case may be, they're not going to grow from that experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to move abroad and I came out to Oz, was because I felt like I was cruising and it was quite easy for me back home. And I probably could have, I think if I was still there now, I'd probably be doing the same thing that I was doing before. So that's what, and I was petrified when I moved over here. I hardly knew anybody, and I had stuff lined up in work and stuff, but massively scared and working in a different environment. But I think that's probably one of the main reasons why I wanted to go and do something, was to that's probably some advice I got from those coaches like Bernard, was mate, go and coach in a different environment, go and coach in a different country, go and do it. You may as well, you've got, I don't have kids, all I had to do was sell my house and car, which is pretty easy enough to do. So I had no ties that I had to stay there for. So for me, I was like, well, I may as well just jump at it and see what happens.
Hi coaches, just a quick update on the Evolve Rugby online coaching course that I'm currently producing based on the content from 100 plus awesome guests of the podcast. I've recently wrapped up a beta trial of the first 5 chapters with a group of coaches from the UBC men's rugby program out in Vancouver, British Columbia. They went through all of the video content, worksheets, the course journal, and have provided me with some amazing insight. Top quality coaches giving me excellent feedback on the course material is exactly what I need to make Evolve Rugby as impactful as possible. So a huge thanks to Curry and all of his coaches out there at UBC for their time. More updates on Evolve Rugby to come in future weeks, but for now, kick back and enjoy this episode. Cheers.
You're with North. What's a bit of a description of the club for those who don't know, and what's a description of your role?
So they play in the Shute Shield, which is sort of New South Wales or Sydney's one, and probably Australia's sort of Premier Rugby division underneath the Super Rugby. So
you'll get some emails from Queenslanders.
I can already feel it now. We'll just fact check that for you. But yeah, and yeah, so our sort of Super Rugby franchise connected to us is the Waratahs. So it's a sort of a semi-professional / professional environment where we've got boys who have, it's quite good in a way where we have lots of young boys at the club. So lots of boys that are 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 up to 25 who are still really pushing for that. They want to try and push to the next level and maybe play Super Rugby. And then we've got the other end of the spectrum where we've got the sort of social side of the club as well. But yeah, I mean, it's the club is called Northern Suburbs, and sort of we're based in North Sydney. And yeah, we're sort of probably past few seasons, they finished when the season got cut short last season because of COVID, they were second in the league behind Sydney Uni, I believe. So they're sort of past 4 or 5 years, they've been sort of like a top four club. So we sit in the top half of the league, and yeah, we're definitely sort of pushing this season anyway to sort of finish top and win the championship, or get into that top two at least anyway again.
Yeah, and they won it a few years ago as well, right? With when Simon Cron was heading up, who's now with the Western Force. Yeah.
So they've had some really good directors of rugby over the past few years, and I think even he told me even Ben Darwin, the ex sort of Wallabies prop, who now sort of runs his own company, doing really well. He was sort of, again, director of rugby there and played there as well. So it's got a real good history. Club's got a really, really good history. Interesting fact I learned was the COVID cancelled the season, and that was the first time the season had been cancelled since World War I. Oh, wow. So that was quite an interesting fact. But yeah, sort of my role really is sort of head of academy for them. And skills coach. So I'll do so engage their boys that they get from sort of 16 years old, and then right through until they're 18, making sure that they then transition up into the Colts, which is their, obviously for people, but the Colt system over here is like, it's probably the most high speed tempo rugby I've ever seen in my life. Like the standard is unbelievable. So it's like under 20s rugby basically. And then making sure the boys transition into that, and then working in that environment there, where hopefully those boys, after they've been with us for 2 years in that under 20s environment, are then able to transition into grade. And the club seems to have a really good process in doing that. So we had sort of last year about 35 boys from their sort of under 20s moved up into their grade system. So they have loads of boys that come through and they transition into men's rugby, which is great for the club, and it's also great for the community.
And how often do you see the players? What's your week look like?
So quite a few times. So we'll have about 3 training sessions a week. Plus then we've got games on Saturdays. Then we've got our review sessions. So reviewing the game back. And that's sort of like all of their games get recorded. We review them all back. So we have loads of contact with them. And for me, I've loved this more than my previous roles, just because of the interaction I can have with the boys, because they're all sort of 18 plus, a lot of the boys I deal with. So for me, I can have WhatsApp conversations in groups with them. I can meet them for coffee. I can meet them for food. I can sort of mentor them better and have a closer relationship to them. So yeah, it's great in that way. I get loads of contact with them. And for those boys, they're sort of juggling rugby and work at the same time. And yeah, so for me, sort of with my philosophy and where I sit with like helping them reach their potential, I feel like I can be more hands-on with them here, because they're adults basically, and I'm not dealing in that sort of child protection, sort of 16, 17, 18 year old, where you're quite limited on what you can do or how close you can get with them. But yeah, so it's quite full on. Weeks are quite full on. And then sort of we've had a few trial games, sort of negating the weather, and then the season starts this week against Eastern Suburbs. So yeah, that's going to be that'll be a tough game.
Sweet, exciting. And what about some of the things you've noticed working with Aussie players compared to your time at Gloucester and Scotland and the like? How much do they swear compared to the others?
Don't even get me started on that. Like that's been one for me, is that swearing is which I swear quite a lot anyway, but for me, I've never heard so much swearing. And number two, it's and it's just even getting used to like Aussie language as well. That's been another one. Like even like just random sayings that people say, like far out and too easy and stuff. I'm like, what does that mean? And they're like, what do you mean? What does it mean? And I'm like, we just don't say that back home.
It means what it means. Come on.
Yeah. It means what it means. Like, it doesn't really mean anything. But no, I'd probably say the main thing is loads of them at school have played. The one thing I've learned is that Aussie rules is every country in the world should be playing Aussie rules. Like, it should be in every school system across the world, because it, like, kids are playing on a circle pitch, which I've stolen loads of training ideas for that. So rather than coning out a square or a rectangle, actually cone out a circle for them to play a game in, because their 360 vision, like the kids, like peripherals and 360 and spatial awareness is crazy. Like, I did some stuff with the younger lads at the Waratahs a few weeks ago, and like their peripheral vision and their like just their vision and their skill set around catch and pass and movement is like is far ahead of, personally, I think, of what is happening back home in the Northern Hemisphere. And I think it is because they play loads of basketball, loads of AFL, touch footy when they're a kid. And then like loads of touch footy, like these kids' catch and pass skills at like 12 years old are amazing. And then they all play league as well. So they're playing so many sports and chuck cricket in there as well. So they're getting smashed with all these sports at school. And that helps them become sort of more skillful. I mean, that's the one thing I've seen here is like the kids are so skillful at rugby. Like, I've been blown away by how skillful they are. And their potential is huge. And sort of like if Australia rugby and everything sort of get that all in check and get that all right. And I know there's a lot of planning and stuff that's happening at the moment. I mean, they could sort of, I mean, I think if you put any of those sort of top 6 Shute Shield teams back in England, I think they'd all be in and around the top 4 of the championship back home.
Cool.
They're probably that's the probably skill level they're at, and probably even some of them like a Sydney Uni and probably us and maybe a few others might even be able to push even higher than that, just because of the facilities and the coaches that they've got available to them. But yeah, I mean, that it's probably just the skill level is so high, and they're laid back as well. Like, quite a lot of the boys are laid back, which is like, I like and I don't like sometimes, especially if we're doing like IBPs and work-ons. It's like, man, like I'll do it when I do it type of thing. It's like, no worries. It's like, and it's like, yeah, but is it not a worry though? I'm a bit like, but it's just, but that's one of the reasons why moving over here I wanted to, was because it's a different culture and environment, and it's like every day is a challenge, but every day I learn something new, and every day is like, I always come away from work thinking, like, I always write stuff down and think, wow, I've learned something here, or that was amazing, or this, that, and the other. So I think I haven't had a day yet where I'm like, thank God that day's over. Like, Jesus, that was a drag. So that's probably the plus side anyway.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's what you want. And what about challenges? What have been some of the things where it's like, oh, I gotta reevaluate what I'm doing here, or I've got to really kind of put my head down and grind through this a bit?
I'd probably say understanding each player, because I was brought up in a very sort of question-led coach development environment where it was all about questions. So question. But actually, within the first week of training, I asked a question of a kid, and he was like, just fucking tell me what I need to do. He was like, I don't want a question. He was like, just tell me what I need to do. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, where do I need to stand? Just tell me what I need to do. So like, for me, like, and obviously like they're adults now, so like they're not kids, but for me, it reevaluated that actually I now know, because I've been working there for 3 months now, I sort of know the kids individually, or the lads individually. So like some kids probably need questioning, but others, they just want to be told. And I probably think, reflecting on that for a coaching point of view, I think actually that's what coaching is just understanding your athletes individually, so you know their needs. So like, coach development or coaching is not just like one size fits all. I think some boys want to be told because that's just how they learn, whereas others would want a question. But I've never ever had a kid or someone turn around to me before and say, can you just tell me what I need to do? So for me, I was a bit like, bloody hell. But yeah, that's probably been sort of the biggest challenge, but a good challenge in a way, because I think it's probably helping me if I ever move on or move into a different environment. I know I'm probably prepared for that. And I understand that. And probably just like it's a different culture, and sort of people are understanding who's receptive to more feedback and more honest feedback. And probably, it's probably been the biggest biggest learning curve really for me since moving over here.
Yeah, it's a great point. No, I've gone down that rabbit hole, and we talked a bit about this before we started the interview. I've gone down that rabbit hole before, where it's like just question everything, like questions, and then we've been on those coaching PD courses where it's like, man, we've just got to get an answer here, or we've just got to like move on, or whatever the case can be. And some of the more cerebral athletes like that. Others, it's just like, let's go, just tell me. And I also think there's a cultural thing there too. I think if you're coaching, for example, in Australia, if it's a Polynesian kid or an Aboriginal kid, often the thought that an adult is asking them a question and wanting that feedback back is there's going to be some divides there that they've never, or maybe not never, but they're not comfortable in that situation. So how do you broach that is a good thing to think about as a coach.
Yeah, massively. I've never coached Polynesian boys since coming, like before. I didn't coach any when I was over in the UK, but coming over here, that's the one thing I was not shocked, but I didn't, obviously, again, like you reflect on it, but like you ask a boy, like especially a lad we got one lad from Tonga, and he is like 6'5". He is huge, like really big presence. But like you ask him a question,
gentleman.
Yeah, generally like just a proper gentleman. Like you ask him a question, and like he goes in on himself. Like he goes really quiet and really timid, and like like he's got a big persona. But like you ask him a question, and for me, I was a bit like, so now it's like rather than asking that question in a group, I'd probably go more one-to-one away from a group. Or even sometimes like he might just want, I just want to know what I need to do, so I just tell him, and that's because that's him telling me what he wants from me. So as the coach, I can't ignore what he wants. But yeah, that again, work like it's very multicultural here, like huge sort of kids from Italian backgrounds, like first generation immigrants, as you said, Aboriginal, Polynesian boys. So like the mix of people is like far greater than back home. I'd say it's been working in the environment that I do, which has been, I've loved it at the moment anyway.
That's awesome. And you mentioned the season's about to kick off. What's you must be pretty fired up for that. And what's your actual main game that you're going to be coaching, and what are you hoping for there?
I mean, I'd probably say, I'm fairly pumped up because this is the first time I've coached in I'd say a competitive league where there's points to play for. There's championships to be won. So for me, I've always worked in that development space where that sort of winning has been a bit of like a dirty word, where you don't make it about winning. But it's, for me, I've just been trying to say to the boys that like they want to win. Like the boys just want to win every single game. Like they love it. So for me, I'm like being like, well, let's talk about competitiveness. And they're like, no, it's winning. That's what it's winning or anything. But no, like they're pumped for it. I'm excited for it as well. And then sort of our under 20s, we kick off on Friday night under the lights, which is always cool. Against sort of Eastern Suburbs, which is going to be it's going to be a big one. We played them pre-season. We played them sort of first trial game, and that was we had a lot of fresh boys. We had a lot of boys from the country that joined this year. So we had about 15 lads come in from sort of as far out as Orange and places. So they're sort of fresh into this environment. So it was an eye opener for them, but a good thing because they straight away were like, right, our IDP is what do we need to improve on? So they've been really on it at training and pushing themselves. But yeah, and then I'd probably say like we just want to be in the mix at the top this year. We definitely want to, like we're definitely more than capable. I've sort of enjoyed bringing a sort of scrum and line out sort of flavour to the team, and luckily
you got the weather for it by the sounds of it.
Bloody weather for it, and the question I get told all the time is, "Oh, it must remind you of home."
Yeah,
all this rain, and I'm like, I say to my partner all the time, I'm like, she's obviously lived here before, so she's used to it. But I'm like, I sold the dream that it was going to be 27, 28 degrees, sunshine and no clouds, and it has rained 4 weeks solidly. But yeah, I mean, we played a game at the weekend against Eastwood, and that was like the rain was atrocious, and it almost turned into a pick and go fest, which I'm glad it didn't do, because it was going to remind me of like watching
Good old
rugby back
days,
home again. But that's them probably going back to what I said. Like, even with it hammers it down with rain here, the boys still want to play rugby. Like, they still chuck the footy around. They still want to pass it wide. They'll still try offloads out the back door. Like, they don't really let the weather affect sort of how they're going to play.
And that's two good things you've raised there. Is like, you've got a team that really wants to win, but you as a coach know that the fog of war can really take that train off the tracks. And if it's a win only mentality, that's a slippery slope. And then you've got the other side of it, where you've got a team that wants to express itself and wants to go hard and wants to experiment and try things. So that's a real balancing act. You can't squash that, but you've got to kind of caress that a bit to get the desired outcomes out of it.
Yeah, 100%. Like, even I say to them, like, some of the boys, like, just think about your behaviors when you play, and like, as long as you can come off that pitch knowing that you gave your all. Like, I said to one of the boys, I was like pointing out sort of five or six things he was doing off the ball. He thought they were going to be negatives, but I was saying they're all positives, like your communication, like your work rate off the ball, like putting yourself in places where you probably didn't need to go, but you wanted to make that tackle, to try that little bit harder. I was like, they're the behaviors sort of that
they're controllables.
They're controllables. And also they're just really good life lessons to learn whilst playing rugby, like working together, selfless acts, hard work. Like, even if you don't go and play professional rugby, you're going to go into the workplace and get a job, and like all those three. And if I was interviewing someone and I was working for a bank or a business, I'd want those three attributes, and you learn them through rugby. But yeah, that comes back to that balance of, you want them to win, you want them to do well, but also you don't want them so focused on it that is what only sort of, that's what their success looks like, when it's so much more than that.
Yeah, no, 100%. All right. Final question before we wrap things up. I enjoy checking out your Twitter stream. You've got a unique approach there. You throw up a bunch of I don't know if we'll call them motivational statements, or more just quotes from coaches or stories about coaches. What's your motivation there, and how is that received, and what have you learned from that kind of process that you're going through there?
I'd probably say I started doing it because I was getting really annoyed. Well, I was watching loads of stuff on YouTube, like coaches' conferences and talks and stuff, and then I'd always clip up little snippets of what I'd seen to show other players or show other coaches, and then I just started putting it online, and then loads of people started resharing it and liking it, and people received it well, and then I think we fall foul of living in a bit of an echo chamber of sport. Probably like people who are on Twitter for politics do, but like, especially for rugby, like we can just live in an echo chamber of where we just surround ourselves with people who think the same, do the same, sound the same, and look the same. So that's why people assume all the videos I put on Twitter, I believe in myself, but a lot 50-50 split. 50% of the videos I put up on there, I just want to cause a bit of a stir, in the sense of I want a good discussion to happen. I'll put football ones up there of sort of Jose Mourinho saying, no, you need to run the game. So like, you as the coach manage the game. You tell the players where they need to go, what they need to do, because I want to cause a discussion. Yeah. Because I think in coaching world, we live in this echo chamber of like, even I've chucked some up about drill-based practice against game-based practice, where I've put a video up there and I've said like, it's all about drills. Like, I don't really believe that, but like, I know that's people are gonna see that and go, well, that's frothing. Not. Yeah. People are going to be foaming at the mouth, but that's sort of what I want, because I want people to have a discussion. And I just think the more we can discuss and chat and have open dialogue about stuff, I just think the better it's going to be, which is probably one of the reasons why I like doing it. Because I always get sort of people will chuck me a DM saying, oh, can I use the video? I really like it. Or some people will like, I've had so like Dan Cox is a guy, he's a rugby coach back home. He now runs the sort of Bristol sort of ACE program, I believe, at their college. And then you've got sort of, he'd always message me and be like, he dropped me a message being like, oh mate, just seen your video. Just why do you think this and why do you think that? So he challenged me on stuff myself, which is great because I want that challenge, but also like I want people to have those discussions openly. And that's probably why I like doing it, really, is just it gets a good reception from people, but also people are able to see different viewpoints from different sports. And like there's been a big sort of,
well, it's the culture stuff too. This one drives me fucking bananas. Is rugby has this high and mighty culture, and like we're the best sport, and no other sport picks up jerseys or sweeps a shed or anything like that. It's just total bullshit.
Yeah, rugby values. Oh, mate, don't even get me started on it. Like, if people knew half the stuff that rugby players and coaches got up to, like if they saw the inside of a lot of environments, they would not be going on about rugby values. But that again is like, it's just, if you look at say like Steve Kerr with the Golden State Warriors, like the basketball coach, mate, like he has got an environment there that is like, it's unbelievable. It's amazing, but he doesn't bang on about culture. Like the one thing I think I found is the coaches or the clubs that aren't speaking about their culture have usually got a really good culture. It's the ones who say, like, we've got a great culture, rugby values this,
All
rugby
Blacks.
that.
Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, but like that's what I mean though. Like when it's pushed out to the point where actually
it becomes marketing.
Yeah, but it doesn't you can say about the All Blacks, but like I think with certain selections they made recently with certain players who
100%.
had been found guilty of certain crimes.
Yeah,
I generally think, how can you as an organization, I understand people make mistakes and I understand people need support, but they shouldn't warrant selection of the highest level. They should be maybe
almost immediately as well.
Yeah, I think you then realize that a person's made a mistake. They should, number one, own up for it, but then work behind the scenes away from things with them if you are going to help them.
Take your penance and
100%. Like if I or anyone that works in day-to-day life, if something like that happened to them, like if you were a teacher and that happened, you'd get sacked.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't get the best school in the world ring you up and say, "Oh, Andy, like, do you want a job here right now because you're such a good guy?" But that's also one of the reasons why I put videos on there, is I want people to sort of understand both sides of the coin and give people as much information as possible. And hopefully people chat about it. There's probably people that are probably bloody sick of the amount of videos that I put up on Twitter, but hopefully there's people take at least one thing away from it. So yeah, that's why I love doing it.
Well, it reminds me of that Ricky Gervais skit where he goes up to the board where it's got guitar lessons and he rips off the paper saying, "I don't want bloody guitar lessons," and calls up the guitar teacher saying, "Why are you offering guitar lessons?" That's Twitter. Like, you can just walk past it, don't watch it, don't look at it. It's all good.
Yeah, 100%. The worst with that though is I fall foul to the grammar police on Twitter quite a lot. So like I'll put a tweet out there and I know there'll be one person will DM me or retweet it and they'll put actually it was there instead of there. And I try and not get angry about it, but I'm like, I can't believe they've actually bloody done that. But my partner says to me all the time, like, you got to ignore it and calm down, because I get so frustrated by it. But yeah.
The beauty of anonymous DMs. It's a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Cool. All right. Well, we'll wrap things up with the same final 4 questions I do every show. When you were a kid growing up, who was one of the players who really stood out to you that made you want to play the game and love it?
I think I forgot the answers I gave you beforehand, so I'm just going to think off the top of my head. I would probably say, growing up, I really like the Leicester Tigers prop, Julian White.
Right.
Like, because I played in the front row. He's just proper old school, like just proper rugged, just run the ball hard, like farming background. I just liked what he was about, like really liked what he was about as a player. But yeah, he was probably one that I grew up and always enjoyed watching. But even though I don't support Tigers, I always used to like watching him play.
They've had a history of some good props come through that club for sure.
Yeah,
Let me just to help you out. I'm just on the Google Drive sheet here, and
Oh, here we go. It's going to be way off. I know it is.
Live response here. Here we go. Oh my goodness, couple of beauties. Richard Hill and Keith Wood were your selections.
Oh yes, yeah. Keith Wood would definitely, because I just think he used to kick the ball all the time.
Yeah,
like I've literally genuine, and he used to have an absolute cannon of a boot on him as well. Like he would. I'll put it out there and say I think he was better kicking than Ronan Nagara was. When he could get distance on it. But yeah. That's probably I'll put all three of those players in the mix.
Nice. And what about now? Who are you liking? You've gone to an inside back and an outside back for this one. One broke the hearts and dreams of England fans, so he's one of my personal favourites. And one is a current superstar.
Is it DuPont or Marcus Smith?
Marcus Smith is one of yours, and then Cheslin Colby was the other.
Oh
one.
yeah, the reason I like Cheslin Colby so much is because I love his background. I like the fact that he was sort of told in South Africa he's too small to play.
Yeah, great,
and he's just an absolute rock star now. And I always, that's probably where I get quite militant on Twitter, whereas I will, if ever it's like Hamish Watson and all those boys that are dropped because they're too small, that's going back. Going back to coming back to Australia, the amount of boys that are small, slender, slight, but they're unbelievable at rugby. I think they
Matt
sort
Gitto.
of
Matt Gitto would never have played for any other team outside of the Wallabies and the All Blacks.
That's the thing that I like here is there's not such a heavy emphasis on physicality and size, just not really spoken about as much at such a young age. They just want to work on skills and evasion and catch and pass, which is what I think is most important.
Yeah, 100%. And what about third question? Who's a high profile coach that you look up to and respect, and was possibly a mentor of yours at some stage?
Oh, I'd have to say, Pezza, probably. Yeah, definitely. I'd say again, like I said at the start of the pod about him. Yeah, he's just helped me loads and give me loads of time, loads of help, and probably his most important thing, he's probably helped me in that sort of bigger brother role as well, of sort of help me in some respect understand what it is to become a man, because he sort of came into my life when I was like 23, 24. So he's sort of been around now for sort of 7 or 8 years and just really, really helped me in that regard. So yeah, I definitely owe him a few beers or money at some point, probably.
Big brother figure.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome. And I just want to make sure this goes well. So I'll get Moritz, mate, if you can edit this when you hear this. So your grassroots guys were Ryan Kirby and Tom Gilchrist. So I'll ask that question now.
Cool.
All right, perfect. And what about final question? Who are some people in the grassroots who deserve some recognition and a shout out?
I'd probably say so. One coach, Ryan Kirby, he's at a school called Rydal Penrhos. Now, there's going to be a lot of Welsh people who are probably going to get really angry at that pronunciation of that, and I've probably gone completely wrong on it. But yeah, he's the head of rugby there, and he's running a great program there. He's a proper good coach. Just creates really fun sessions, engaging sessions. Again, really personable with the boys. He's a proper good guy, really good coach, running a good program. And then the other coach, so Tom Gilchrist, runs the ACE program up at Bishop Burton. So he runs their school program up there, and he does stuff with the England counties for the North. And then we work with each other for the Scotland stuff as well. And he's just been a great help and mentor over the years. He's really, really helped me a lot. I've learned loads from him. He's probably got a spreadsheet full of kids who have come through his system at school and at sort of Yorkshire Academy, where he's the head coach of there as well, that have gone on to play pro rugby. So he's doing great work. And he probably gave me the best advice ever when I was only been coaching 2 or 3 years. And he basically just said to me, just be yourself. And he was like, don't change for anybody. He said, just be yourself. Don't change for anybody. He was like, as soon as you do that, you're compromising sort of your own values and who you are. And that's always resonated with me. And I've got a terrible memory, but I sort of remember that driving back down the M5 back home after a camp, and we had a reflection, and that's what he just said to me. He was like, mate, just be yourself and you'll be fine.
Great. Awesome advice and a great way to wrap things up. All right, Andrew. Well, it's been great chatting with you. Great to hear about your adventures in Australia, and excited to follow the successes of Norse in the Colts and also in the great stuff. And I want to thank you for giving up your time and coming on the show for a chat.
Honestly, absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for having me on. I've really loved it.
Awesome. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Rugby Coaches Corner podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a review via iTunes and keep listening for the next episode. You can also follow us via Twitter at Rugby Coaches CNR or via the website therugbycoachescorner.com. Until next time, keep sharing ideas to make the game better.